Welcome to Northwest NightCast, a final update on the day's top stories.
The railroad says the fuel that spilled in today's derailment won't reach the Columbia River. And the pothole patrol has hit the streets that have gone through a beating this winter.
With news for the Great Northwest, this is Northwest NightCast with Kevin Shaub, Jeff Simbita with sports, and the Northwest NightCast weather team.
Good evening. I'm Kevin Shaub. The Pentagon tonight says a U.S. Marine was shot and killed today while on patrol in Mogadishu. Officials say the Marine was hit by gunfire near a soccer stadium. The Marine's name has not been released yet tonight. The death is the second among American military personnel since the U.S.-led relief effort began in Somalia. 60 airmen returned to Fairchild Air Force Base today in Spokane after doing their duty for Operation Restore Hope. Their KC-135 tankers touched down today after a month of refueling planes that airlifted relief supplies to Somalia. Other airmen from Fairchild are due to arrive home on Wednesday. If the mail to House Speaker Tom Foley's office is any indication, a lot of people in eastern Washington aren't happy about lifting the ban on gays in the military. But in Spokane today, Foley said he supports lifting the ban. And if the issue ever came before Congress, Foley says he would have to do what he thinks is right.
And complete the cabinet. The telephone calls and letters and other things certainly do express the sincere feelings of people, but they also express the views of people who are often most deeply moved or concerned about the issue. They don't necessarily represent opinion of everyone in the district. I don't want to try to guess what that is, but it probably is not too different from the country as a whole.
The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff calls today's meeting with President Clinton on gays in the military productive. But otherwise, Colin Powell is refraining from further comment tonight. A Clinton spokesman says the top brass expressed their opposition to Clinton's plan to lift the ban. But the spokesman says they also recognize Clinton's authority as their commander-in-chief. Investigators looking for the source of a food poisoning outbreak linked to Jack in the Box hamburgers have now narrowed down the possible source. The U.S. Department of Agriculture says supplies of ground beef have been traced back to 13 slaughterhouses. 15 children remain at Seattle Children's Hospital tonight. That's where a 2-year-old boy died on Friday of kidney failure caused by the E. coli bacteria. Many in the food service industry say they believe the outbreak could have been prevented. As Bob High now reports, the technology is readily available to detect the bacteria long before it reaches the restaurant table.
Food processing is a high-tech industry, but the sound of machines was accompanied by voices of concern at the opening of the Northwest Food Processors' 79th Annual Convention in Portland. Some food testing experts here say the E. coli bacterial outbreak traced to tainted meat at Jack in the Box restaurants didn't have to happen.
You can prevent the majority of the outbreaks.
Tim McCann's Portland-based company tests meat samples for E. coli and other contamination. Food Products Laboratory conducts tests for all major grocery chains on the West Coast and several fast food chains. McCann says each lot of meat can be sampled quickly before it's shipped to restaurants.
If you're speaking of E. coli in particular, yes, the results can be out within 24 to 48 hours. So they can have a negative result in that length of time.
But such testing isn't required. Jack in the Box officials also say it may take some time to track down the exact source of the bad beef. Officials believe the meat was contaminated at a slaughterhouse. The makers of this electronic inkjet printer say that normally shouldn't be a problem, even with beef.
Certainly, you can go right back to the field that the cow was in before slaughter if proper coding and marking is done all the way through the process.
Experts say the bottom line is that there is technology to track down problems in food and catch them before they explode into a deadly outbreak. At the Oregon Convention Center, Bob High reporting.
Police tonight are continuing to search for a man who allegedly beat his wife pregnant with twins. Authorities say they responded to a report of a couple fighting Friday night. When they got to the couple's home, they found a woman who had been beaten in the stomach. The man had left the scene. Doctors say they haven't determined yet if the unborn babies have been injured. Union Pacific Railroad still has a lot of work to do in cleaning up a freight train derailment near Wallula. But tonight, crews say they don't believe the fuel that spilled will make it to the Columbia River. 4 locomotives tumbled into a pond and overturned, and 15 cars left the tracks about 4 o'clock this morning. Union Pacific has been working to clean up some 20,000 gallons of diesel fuel that spilled into that pond. The State Ecology Department says it could take several days to clean it all up. 3 crewmen aboard the freight train were hospitalized for back and neck injuries. The railroad says the tracks had washed out, causing the 80-car freight train to jump the tracks. Part of western Washington is under a flood warning tonight, as heavy rain and melting snow are just filling the rivers in the west. Water with nowhere else to go is covering roads and fields in East King County and elsewhere in western Washington. Emergency management officials tonight are watching several rivers, including the Snoqualmie east of Seattle, which is expected to reach flood stage by early tomorrow morning. Well, now that the warm air has melted a lot of the snow and ice from the streets, the repair crews are out now working on the potholes. We'll have that story coming up on Northwest Nightcast. Right now, with the latest on the sudden change in the weather, here's Steve Mum.
It's going to be hard to find any snow out there if things keep up the way they've been going. Will the thaw last for the rest of the month? I'll be back in a couple of minutes to let you know after we take a look at the current conditions around the area.